Well, I've had a request to kind of talk about the thought process and just do a little bit more voiceover work. And this is me trying to make good on that. So this is a video. This was a fun job in Swissvale, I believe. It's been been a while since we've done it last year, and it was an interesting job. We had a few things to go around and go through. They already had the pergola set up, which is totally fine. It's better to have that than them trying to do after the fact. Sometimes it doesn't matter. But right there, I'm just digging through the side, and I had plenty of access. That's one thing you have to pay attention to make sure that you have enough access to get full size machinery in. The bigger the better. What you can do, you want to make sure that if you're using a dingo or something small, you have to pay attention to that. You're not going to beat up the yard any less. So something like this, we actually fit through the garage here. You can see in the background, there's a garage with barn doors on the back end and just a regular garage door in the front. That it worked out. We measured it, remeasured it, and made sure that we had enough room. And it was still scary the first time going through there because there was about an inch of clearance once I get to the center. And just wanted to bring in the biggest piece of equipment possible, because you figure with I believe most dingoes or walk behinds or whatever you call them, you're looking at about 600 pounds or something load capacity, whereas this you're looking at a lot more. For the bucket, you're looking at about triple that what you can haul in one scoop. So you're saving one scoop each time you come back. That really matters. It's cost effective. This, as far as a machine goes, is about double the cost of a smaller machine, but it does triple the work. So that you have to take that into account when you're sizing up your machinery. It doesn't do any less damage. That's a common misconception, that people think that the smaller machine is going to do less damage. And I have a few videos I want to put out to show the difference, to just show that the bigger machines really don't do less damage, or don't do any more damage. They actually do less, because you end up with usually a larger format track that's able to float a little bit better. So the number one thing for damage to any surfaces like that is basically the moisture. So if it's super wet soil, then it's going to be a problem. Okay, so you see here we're putting in this is called woven fabric. We've already excavated everything. We're digging out. Everything's dug out, and this is something that's nice if you have a place to pile your dirt, pile it up and try and get the base in as quick as possible. We use dense graded base, and that is weather sensitive. I know a lot of you guys out there are kind of trying to do the cheater way, using 57s in all applications. This actually wouldn't be a bad idea to do under this particular application. That would work. You just, when you're doing open graded base, you absolutely still need a pipe, because otherwise you're going to end up with a giant bathtub in our climate, and you're going to end up with freeze thaw. We have clay soils. They do not drain very well, or really at all. So you're going to end up with a giant bathtub. Water's just going to sit in there. You're going to end up with water, and then it's just going to be freezing and moving the job site all around. It's really not something you want to be messing around with. So yeah, right now we're checking the heights. You kind of want to have your laser level set up in advance. You don't want to be doing this stuff on the fly. This is way too important to try and figure out as you go. You really want to have your job site laid out before you even, it really should be kind of part of the estimating process. You don't want to undercharge and be stuck. And that's what a lot of guys do. They undercharge, maybe get a little too optimistic, and then sometimes they have to cut corners, and that's a problem. We don't want to do that. We want to do everything right. Experience is certainly the best teacher, but learn from somebody else's experience. That's what we're here for. You have to pay attention to what experience you're learning from, though, because there's a lot of bad information out there. So we're just trying to do our part to help train contractors and homeowners to just understand what the proper procedures are. So this, when in our climate here, we do everything just about to NCMA specs. We do a dense graded base, and we run, you see he's running the Bomag. It's a pretty decent sized machine. That's actually the minimum recommended to use for NCMA. You're not really supposed to be using a Harbor Freight tamper. If you're going to claim that you're doing NCMA specs, you need a full size unit like that, and they're pricey at probably $8,000 or $9,000, and you can just rent one if you can't afford it. It's definitely worth it to make sure you're doing your projects properly. So, but what we do is dig down 6 inches, or technically 9 inches. So you're going to dig down 6 inches for the base, and add on top of that, you're going to add the pavers are 2 3/8. I forget what they are in millimeters, but 2 3/8, and then you're going to add an inch of sand or maybe chip stone on top, and then with that'll compact about 3/8 of an inch. So that's where you get the 3 inches from. So it's 2 3/8 plus 1 inch minus 3/8 after you compact it. That's where you can use your Harbor Freight tamper to compact everything. That's totally fine, just to settle the pavers into place. That's not a problem for your poly sand and everything. So, but you don't want to be using a Harbor Freight tamper to install your base. So right now, this is the hardest and most time-consuming part of the job for us, really I would say for anybody, but to get the base perfect, you want that plus or minus 3/8 of an inch. That's the width of a carpenter's pencil. That's a carpenter's pencil slightly thinner than that, but if you can make it to the tight tolerance of a carpenter's pencil over a 10-foot straight edge, your base is just about perfect. So you do not want to skip this step. You do not want to move too quickly over it. This is the number one area that could be rushed, and I don't think it's worth it. It's really not a good idea. What will happen is the pavers will ultimately settle to whatever your base is. So if you're using a traditional highway sand, you're going to end up, everything's going to settle to what is below it. So you do not want to have giant dips in it and rush this process. So we just keep going and keep working it, and there's a whole lot to it. And this is one of it's the most tedious, the most time consuming, but also the thing that you're going to do to make a project really last. Everybody can make nice cuts for your pavers. That's the easy part. That's the part that everybody sees. You absolutely want to make nice cuts. That's great. But this is the part right here where you're going to make or break a project. If you're planning on being in business for any length of time, this is the stuff you need to be doing properly to get to this point. So you need to dig down properly, put enough base in, use a large enough compactor to actually compact it. Don't cheap out on the compactor. If you're going to be a professional, be a professional. So there's a reason these tools cost what they cost, because they are worth it, and I would highly recommend it. There's a lot of tools out there handy. Some of them are very handy and useful, and some of them are really not really worth the money. And a compactor, laser level, those are things that you definitely want to have around. So that was day one. We worked a really long day there. That was to get the base installed, and like I said, we want to, especially with the threat of rain. I don't remember if it rained or not, but I think there was a threat of rain. That's why we tried to do it all the same day. And you want to try and get the base. When you are dealing with dense grade base, you want to try and do it the same day if it's possible. You can't do it on really large stuff. You start getting over 1,000 square foot, you're really not going to be able to do it with a small crew like we have in one day and do it well. So, and a good idea is just cover up your soils. Just doesn't hurt anything. Have some extra fabric laying around, cover it up, so whenever you do get hit with rain, the pile stays dry. You're not overloading your truck with a bunch of sloppy wet material, and the dump sites aren't going to hate you for it. So I'm not really sure what's happening here. I guess we're working around the corner. It's been a while since I watched this. Yeah, so it looks like we're just double checking everything. I'll check it a whole bunch. Maybe over check it, but I don't know that you can put in too much effort on this stage of the process. So I think right now we're probably laying out string lines. I don't know. I saw a tape measure at some point, and it looked like we were trying to lay something out. So to get this finalized, it seems like it's taking a little bit longer than normal. But it'll usually take us as long to finalize it as it will to finalize it and get it within that final tolerance. That'll usually take us the same amount of time as doing the whole rest of the base. So we can get it roughed in say a few hours. Let's say something would take 4 hours. It might take us almost 4 hours to just finalize the base and get that. So I really can't stress enough. That's very important thing to do and to not skimp on. So yeah, we're screeding sand. You can see the way just driving right through there. And it was fun going through there. The neighbors, the street up front was really packed. I think they were working on the house next door. Everyone was super friendly. You don't get that all the time. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, where the neighbors are willing to help and move vehicles and stuff. And a lot of times people try and do it the other way and block you in, and they don't want to lose their spot. But for the most part, it seems like we've been doing having a lot better success with people, the neighbors helping us out. We try and do things a lot more professionally. We try and notify everybody in advance. Like it's not a surprise. We're not just showing up in the circuses in town and everybody says, what in the world's going on here? So it's important to know that you're taking over these people's lives for a few days. You're really causing a disruption. The people working from home, we're noisy, vibrates, working in this place had a little bit more room, but a lot of these city houses, you're right up next to the neighbors. You're vibrating their house with the compactor. So you don't want to be doing anything anything to upset them any more than is absolutely necessary. But it is important to use a proper compactor so that you never have to come back. So that's the beauty of when you do it right. You make a lot of noise and you take things over, but you never have to worry about it. No one ever has to come back, and no one ever has to come back and go over our work. And that's what we really strive for. That's the number one thing. We're happen to be doing a job right now where there's a small retaining wall, and the job itself it's only 4 weeks old, and somebody else installed it, and we're having to completely dismantle it and start all over. So it can't stress enough how important it is to do things properly. So yeah, right now it's just laying pavers. It's kind of what you see is what you get. You want to screed the sand, pick an area to work. Depending on what you are using, if you're using highway sand, some people call it concrete sand. If you're using that, moisture content becomes a concern. You want to make sure that you have enough moisture in your sand. You don't want to be using stuff that's way too wet or way too dry. You're really supposed to only spread out as much as you're going to use that day. What'll happen is if you end up spreading out too much and you get some rain, it turns really nasty. It gets super wet. It's like, I would say if you're familiar with walking on the beach and you walk on the area right next to the water, like in the water, just how packed in the sand is there. Well, it's not very conducive to laying pavers on. So you kind of have to scrape that stuff up and lay out some stuff with the proper moisture content. And these are all things that take time to understand. You definitely want to take a few classes on this stuff. Well, it depends on who's teaching them, but you want to take maybe an ICPI class, NCMA for retaining walls, and just try and learn how to do this stuff properly. Be very, very careful on what you watch online. There's just a lot of DIYers that are doing it bad. So yeah. One thing that's if you can, this time of year when it's warm, try and wet cut. You should have some sort of water go into the grinder. That would definitely help. But so it's trying to make a weird curve. This is where we did purchase an IQ saw, a dustless saw, and that we can make the radius cuts a lot easier on that. So instead of we don't have to use a grinder near as much for pavers. So that really, really helps things, and it's practically dustless. You don't have to you're not kicking up as much stuff. You really don't want to be breathing this stuff in. It's not good to do it over a long time. So yeah, it's just laying and cutting. You can see how long it takes to make these cuts. The whole field got laid in almost no time, but the working around the posts and the edges and stuff, that takes a while. So I think we were working on one where we were working on the corner, and Angelo didn't like one of my cuts, so he went and cut it again. So I don't mind if somebody wants to do a better job than me. I'm all for it. If he sees something that I might have done, sometimes you're a little too close to it and you just like, okay, that's good, and then you walk away and it looks bad, and someone else comes up and takes it over, then that helps being able to switch off like that. So yeah, since we bought the dustless saw, these our handheld saws, I don't think have, other than maybe one time in the last year, I feel like the handheld saws just have hardly been used. So we haven't been using them a whole lot. So it's always funny to watch the birds boogieing around the yard. I don't know if you can catch any of that, but anytime we dig stuff up, we're bringing all the worms to the surface, and they're always out hunting. They follow us around. Okay, yes, they're cutting in place, and then we have the water That is nice with the handheld saws, to be able to cut in place when you're doing your border. I don't really recall if this had a border, but the jobs kind of run together at this point. We've done so many of them. It's definitely nice to be able to cut in place. That is the ideal, but you do need to wet cut. We also purchased a vacuum for our saw, and that helps as well. We hook up a shop vac to it. What is it? Dustless Technologies, I think it is. So. And then they're pulling the sand away. It looks like from here, it looks like there's like number 9 limestone, which is like some people call it rice stone, chip stone. A lot of times we use that as our setting bed. I would not recommend that for a driveway, but we'll do that for a patio. So it's kind of a hybrid type where it's dense grade, and then we do have the open grade chip stone on top for the bedding course. So yeah, right now we're running the compactor. Looks like poly sand because we got whoever's running it's got a mask on. Poly sand's another thing. You really don't want to be doing anything with poly sand and breathing that stuff in. It's activated by water, so you don't want to get that stuff in your lungs. It's can't be good for you. I know some of them say that you don't even need to wear a mask, which I think is astonishing. See, I think it's just edge restraint and, or no, it can't be edge restraint because we just tamped it. So it's pulling stuff away and, or regrading. Looks like might be doing topsoil, or at least getting the stuff around it, and digging out the fabric. We use, as I said, we use the woven fabric. It's heavy duty fabric we use on patios below the walls. You want to do that to separate the aggregates from the soils. You don't want them running together. Just from the freeze thaw climate, or freeze thaws in our climate. And just in general, you can still run into it doesn't even have to be freeze thaw, to be honest. It just wet, when everything gets wet, and it'll start mixing together, and that's why you use the fabric to keep everything separated. So these projects are moving all the time. The earth is moving. There's nothing's in motion, or nothing is stationary. Everything is moving at some point. So you want to just do your best to give the absolute best product you can. It really doesn't cost that much more. It doesn't cost that much more time, but it's the stuff that's really going to set you apart when you can look at projects you've done 10, 15 years ago that still look great. And hopefully you want to stay in business that long. We don't need guys that only want to just do this for a year or two and then quit. We need more people to do it and do it properly. Yeah, right now it's activating the sand with the water, the polymeric sand. So that's something we, for a lot of our larger joint pavers, like the slabs, we switched to easy joint, and we like that because that way if it's raining we can just keep working. And it's Pittsburgh, it rains quite frequently, so I do like the fact that it gets very hard compared to the polymeric sand. We've used some stuff that I haven't really liked a whole lot. It depends, I guess, on the brand, but there's certain brands I definitely would not recommend. And there's some of them. I'll say we've had right now when we do actually use polymeric sand, we use Polysweep. So it seems to be a good formula for what they have. Everything seems to be working well with it. So right now we are laying out. So the patio is done. That part's done with, and right now we're getting into something we don't do a whole lot of, and that's creating just a gravel. I guess you can call it a patio area. I'm not used to calling something with gravel a patio, but I would say that that's what it would be. They're gonna end up putting chairs on it. We're using edging stone. They're artificial edging stone. They mimic Belgian block, cobblestone, whatever you call them, and they're a lot more uniform. So, and the nice thing is you don't have to go digging through a pile of them. If you've ever had to use cobblestone, they're kind of a pain to try and source at some places, and they're almost anywhere you do buy them from, they just have it in a giant bin, and you got to go pick your own. And who wants to do that? These things we can get delivered to us, and the quality looks great, and they look just about as nice as the actual cobblestone. I think they're about the same price too. Yeah, it's just more digging into this. So digging and putting in the rest. It's putting in river gravel. Lay down the fabric. You always want to have fabric down anytime you're doing any sort of any sort of like landscaping thing like that. You want to, anytime you're using river rock or river gravel, you want to have some fabric down, because you don't want the weeds coming up through. If you don't do that, the grass is going to grow right up through. Even if you spray it, it's going to be pretty rough. You will ultimately have weeds growing on top, but that's just going to be from, when these trees start losing their leaves, and you blow them out of there, and you don't get all of them out, and because you never are, then they'll eventually start turning into dirt, and you're going to end up with a nice place for weeds to grow. So that's one area you don't want to do it. So you can see a little bit better view here of what we have, and the cobblestone, called edging block. Yeah, they're nice, and nice stepping stone to go with it. And it's pretty basic. Dig down just a tiny bit, put those edging stone in, and spread the gravel. And you always want to, when you're spreading gravel like this, you want to make sure you wet it down so you can see the color, so you can kind of show the client the color. They should already have it picked out. That's ideal. You don't want to be getting into a scenario where it's not the color they expected or anything. So they will change color, because this stuff's usually covered in sand and dirt. And it's amazing once you spray a hose on there, how it brings out all the natural colors of the stone. Yeah, pretty basic stuff. This is stuff that really anybody could do. Normally we don't get a whole lot of work like this, so we don't really pursue it. The patio itself, that's what we're known for, patios and walls. And but this is something where I think it was just because we're here, might as well do it and do the whole thing, so they don't have to try and do it themselves, because this is still quite a bit of work just to do all this. A few ton of stone, probably two 2 ton of stone, which if you don't have equipment is can really add up. If you have the equipment, it's pretty simple to do all this, and especially if you do it every day. Yeah, backing through, call it the Bat Cave every time I go in there. This is the least favorite part. Angelo's on the right there, just working topsoil into an area you can't really fit a wheelbarrow in, and you're just trying to work it in, and yeah, it's time consuming. But that's the stuff that you leave people with, and they end up with a nice looking project. So this reminds me of the neighbor boy to the left of the camera here. He would watch the machine, and he was very young, and he would just scream because he loved watching the track loader. And the neighbor was, or the homeowner was talking to me about it, and she said it's amazing how children just love landscaping equipment and construction equipment. And I just said, yeah, some of us never grow out of it, and that's the truth. I absolutely love what I get to do every day, and this is very blessed. There's a lot of people that don't like their jobs, and I really feel bad for them. I don't love every day of it, but I really, really, really do love what I do. Yes, it just restoring the lawn. How we need to show some videos of just how quickly it comes back together. It looks like we make this huge mess and everything's terrible, and then in a couple hours, it's boom, everything's brought back. Especially if you want it with sod, that'll do the trick too. It's instant grass. If any of you have ever put that in, it's extremely easy to do. You just cut it when you're putting in sod. Just cut it with a utility knife and lay it, and just make sure you water it like crazy. We got to go back and look at some of these jobs after the fact, because it's all of the pictures, just all you see is dirt. We got to go back when everything looks all snazzed up. Pretty boring stuff. Just finishing touches. I'm screwing the bottoms back on the post there. I'm glad we saved them, because as far as I understood, that they were going to have the carpenters come back and put new boxes on, but since we were able to change the grade of because it was going to leave the concrete out of whack, but we were able to change the grade and not need any of that. So all right, that's it for that one. See you on the next one.